So let's start our tour of the various Linux desktop environments that we can actually install on CentOS. And this is really just a sampling of them. There are others, and then there are ways you can tweak them and modify them that will make them look very different. Now, I've actually installed three completely separate desktop environments. And this is one of the really exciting things you get to do with an open source operating system like Linux. I'm not stuck with one operating system, but I don't have to have three different virtual machines to demonstrate this to you. All I need is one virtual machine. It has three separate desktops. I can just log into them as I want. The only thing I have to do is choose which one I want, then I can set one for my default. So you can actually download these, tweak each one, see which one you really like the most, and then make that your main desktop environment. Just remember, you will need enough memory to accomplish this, and virtual machines tend not to have the ability to really get into the 3D type environments that many users expect in a modern desktop. Now, if this was on an accelerated 3D hardware card, I could do many more things with it. As a matter of fact, you can do amazing things with a Linux desktop, more than you can do with any of the proprietary ones, actually. All right, so let's go ahead and log in. First one we'll look at is Genome, our original one. And I want you to look directly below here. I've installed three different desktops, and if I pull up this menu, I get to choose which one I want to go into. So the first one we'll go into is Genome. Just give us a little idea of where we're at. And like I said earlier, this is very, very similar to a Windows feel. It's not meant to emulate a Windows desktop in any way, but it has that feel that you're used to. And so we can go up here and double click on the computer icon and browse the file system. Now, the one thing I'll point out to you is that the file manager in here is Nautilus. And as you'll see, as we go through the different desktops, there's different file managers that are in here. And that's another one of those things you can do. Each of these are components, and when I get to the part of talking about building X, starting from the X server and moving forward, you'll actually get to see how this all gets put together piece by piece by piece. Because remember, this is just an application. That's all it is in the Linux world. And I can change that application and modify that application and tweak it any way I want. So this Genome environment is similar to us. We've been in here before. We have applications up here. Once again, now you'll notice a lot of these have K's in front of them. That's because I've installed KED. When I install KED, it has a lot of its own little applications, and some of them are just fantastic. As a matter of fact, I like some of them much more than I like the Genome default applications. But it's great. We can share them. Right, so I can install KDE applications in Genome. Now they are built. One's built basically around C, and the other one's C++. And there's a holy war between the Genome people and the KDE people, but that's okay as long as they keep working at it and allow us to tweak it. Now we are in a server environment. That's one thing I'll tell you. So this is a very basic Genome desktop, and we can tweak it a lot more. I'm going to log out now. I'll go up here to the corner and I will say quit, and I'll log out, and the next one I'll go into is KDE. So I'll click on student, come down to bottom, select KDE, and put in my password. And right off the bat you see a dramatic difference in the way that the operating systems look. So KDE has that kind of funky little edge to it. Now please understand, Genome is not a stodgy desktop. It's a server that we're working with CentOS, so it's meant to. Ubuntu uses Genome, and it actually uses something called Unity as its desktop, but Genome is as tweakable as the KDE desktop is, and so, but this has a very different feel to it. And if I click on here, you can see Right off the bat, it's a different way of interacting with the system. If I click on the file manager here, this looks very different than the file manager we had in Genome. And if I click on it, it should be, because it's a completely different one. This is the Dolphin file manager. And we can do some fun things. We can do the same things in Genome, but by default we can play around with. I'll add a widget here. Give you kind of an idea of what you can do, and I'll add a widget for a folder. This is kind of a Windows type of thing. We have widgets in all operating systems. So we have this nice transparency here. If I click or just hover over this, I shouldn't even click on it, I'll just close it. I'll just hover over it. I get a nice little pop view of what's in that folder. I can come out of here and I can close that if I want to. Now, the other thing you get with Linux and Linux desktops is this idea of multiple desktop environments, and I'll demonstrate that when we get to XFCE, because I have that already set up for us. So let's move out of here. We'll log out, and now we'll go take a little look at XFCE. Now remember, XFCE, its job and what it's meant to do is be lightweight, efficient, but be able to do everything that we do in a full weight GUI environment. So I'll click on Student again. This time I'll choose XFCE for our session, and then I'll log in. Once again, isn't this amazing how we can, it's giving me a little error message about the host name in here, how we can have all these different graphical environments that we can literally have on one install, and we can move around and play with them and see what we want to do with them. So here's XFCE. I have no idea why they use a mouse or a rat as their mascot, you know, just the way Linux is, you know, penguins, rats, things like that. You can see right off the bat it has a very minimalistic view to it. Popped up all on its own there. And that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be lightweight and efficient. So this would be the one that I probably would want on a server that wasn't going to have a GUI running on all the time. But you could still have the other two also. And if I click on the file system, here is actually, and it is because of the memory issue here. Here's the file manager I wanted to show you, and open it up, and we can see it's a completely different file manager. So each one of these environments has their pluses and their negatives, and I did want to show you that we have multiple virtual desktops that we can go to, as you see up on top here. Go back in here and I can see my other desktop. So that's a little tour of the various, or at least a couple of desktop environments we can use. What we'll look at next is we'll take a step back and look at X. And this is going to be interesting, this fact that you'll see how you literally build one on top of the other, from X to a window manager to a file manager and so forth. Alrighty, see you in a bit.